Well, hello, SIE candidates. Hope we find you well. Welcome to my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Today, I'm going to go over the six option strategies you're held accountable on the SIE. Um, let's talk about some assumptions. I assume you have already watched lectures 1, 2, and 3 about options. So this is not an options lecture. This is just working models. So if you want to try your hand at each of these, you can hit stop and try and figure them out. You're going to be held accountable for break even, max gain, and max loss. This lecture was a request based on the similar lecture for Series 7s I made, which was 9 working models of the strategies they're held accountable for. And, I thought somebody asked for it. And then today I was doing some other things. I bumped into this deck that I'd used in a previous SIE class, and it had the strategies. So I figured, what the heck, I'll pop it up there for you. So make sure you're solid on the basics. In fact, if I just relabeled this basic options 1, 2, 3, 4 as A, B, C, D, that would be the most important answer set for you on the SIE. What I mean by that is when you see long call, you're not fumbling around that that's a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. And when you see short call, that's an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. We call those contract specifications. Again, I'm not re-lecturing options. That's lecture 1, nomenclature of option contracts, and lecture 2, the basics. By the way, that 2-hour lecture, it's a 2-for-1, is the most important lecture. I'm always happy to see it's our most popular lecture. It's 650 and counting over the last 2 months when I started the channel earlier this year. Long puts. The puts are the ones that throw people for a loop, and I'm not sure, you feel good being screwed up in some way. Dean is used to seeing people screwed up. But a long put, hopefully you're not fumbling around that is a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. You're the putter. And if you're the putter, we need some putties. A short put is an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price. So here I have it as 1, 2, 3, 4 as an overview of the strategies you're held accountable for in terms of max gain, break even, max gain, max loss, bullish or bearish. But you could see this as an A, B, C, D, and that would be the most important answer set for you on your exam. I've had people request, that I do more of the very important answer set. So I have one here at the end of the lecture. This shouldn't be a long lecture because, again, I'm not lecturing options, just giving some working models. And then there's 2 stock plus option positions you're held accountable for on SIE, long stock and short the call, known as a covered call or buy right. Covered call because you're actually agreeing to sell stock you own. That's entirely different than agreeing to sell stock you don't own. Those first 4 are speculative positions. People are just betting on the stock price. In the first 4, you may end up with the stock, but that's not your intent. And then a very smart thing to do is to buy a put on stock that you own, a protective put. Not, what we're trying to contrast. Not, the name isn't testable. Covered call is testable, but protective put, we're just trying to, or married put, give you the idea here that you're not buying a put to speculate as a bear. What you're trying to do is offset the risk in the long stock position. You're buying term insurance on the stock position, if you will. Now, if you're an SIE and you're going to matriculate into a Series 6, the memory work is fine. If you want to just memorize these things, I think it's fine for the 2, 3, 4 option questions. And, if you're matriculating to our Series 7 top off, I really think that it's important you make an intellectual down payment in terms of owning this, because in, Series 7 top off land, this is going to be more like 20 plus questions. So just make sure that what you're up for in the future, right? So one thing, everybody's got a different thing. So, I'd also warn you, be careful that you aren't listening to too many voices. What I mean by that is you need a strategy, you need a process, and whatever process works for you, that's the one you should use. I have a process that helps a lot of people, but I would consider, every Dean lecture as a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. And so, you got to give some thought about how you're going to proceed. Now, I'm a big fan of what I call the options matrix. There's our options matrix. If you come in the exam and you say, oh, let me data dump my options matrix. It's not a box with 4 squares. And what I mean by that is every quadrant somehow relates to another quadrant. So as you can see here, we have our 4 basic option positions. Let me just get my highlighter here. That's bullish because you wouldn't want to buy the stock unless you think it's going up. And if you want to just memorize things, that's fine. If I ask you what's a long call, and you as an SIE candidate respond by saying, Dean, when you're long a call, you paid a premium, you have a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. The max gain is unlimited. The max loss is the premium. You're bullish. Your break even is strike price plus premium. You might not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. And that's not a bad way to proceed. Now, again, backstage, some people like to say RIGHT. I like to say choice. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you, because they're not on the test going to say somebody has a right or a choice. You got to get there. And you got to get there when you hear the word long, or you hear the word owner, or holder, or buyer. When you hear those words, you got to say, okay, they got a choice. They either have a choice to call the stock away, or they have a choice to put the stock. And again, I'm just pointing out here that if you're an SIE candidate and you want to memorize things, if you memorize the matrix, I think you might pass the whole test just with a memorized matrix. You might not have any clue what you said. But I say, what can you tell me about a short call? And you say, Dean, when you're short the call, you've received a premium. You have an obligation to sell the stock. You wouldn't want to sell the stock unless it's going down. It's bearish. Your max gain is the premium. Your max loss, test question, is unlimited. You might have not any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. You say the break even is strike price plus premium. By the way, if you get the break even, then you know where you want it in relationship to the market price of the stock, right? Here you're bullish, you want it above, you want it below. I'm not lecturing options. I'm just sharing with you that if you memorize the matrix, that would get you over on the SIE. It may not get you over on the 7. And then remember, they also might say on your exam seller, they might say writer. And then what you got to get to is that's an obligation. I think of somebody who has an obligation as a potential victim. You may or may not have to perform on the contract, but that's what ends up happening. I used to make every customer sign a happy letter, big boy, big girl letter, saying, do you understand that when you're short a call, if you get exercised, you're going to be delivering the stock at less than the current market price? Yeah, and then if that happened, I'd whip that out and say, hey, here's your signature, say you understood it. Long a put. So again, they could say on the test, owner, holder, buyer, whatever you're not prepared for. But what you ultimately got to get to is that pay to premium, have a choice. Again, I like to use the word choice, but you could use the word RIGHT if you'd like. I personally don't like using RIGHT because it sounds exactly like WRTE and they mean exact opposite things. I say, what can you jump in a long put? You say, Dean, when you're long a put, you've paid a premium, you have a choice to sell the stock, which is ultimately bearish. Your break even is strike price less premium. A good way to remember the break evens is with a mnemonic call up, put down. It's a great mnemonic for break evens. And your max loss is the premium. Anytime you're on the left-hand side of the matrix, the worst case is you pay a premium, you lose your money. It's pretty easy to qualify somebody who wants to buy an option position. Is this money you can afford to lose? Now, for everybody, that's going to be a different number. And as we said, if we're going to have a putter, somebody who has a choice to sell the stock, we need a put-e, a potential victim. I said, why can't you tell me about a short put? You said, Dean, when you short a put, you've received the premium. You have an obligation to buy the stock at the premium, at the strike price. Your max gain is the premium. Max loss is break even to zero. The break even is strike price less premium, and you're a bull. Again, you may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. So I'm just sharing again that if you memorize this matrix, this isn't the option lecture. Remember, there's 3 hours of option lectures, lecture 1, 2, and 3. This is just, again, working models, giving you some ideas. So this is kind of a little ditty, if you will, about working models for the SIE. But I'm just saying on the SIE, for the amount of questions you get, you can certainly use memory work to get over on the SIE. If you want to, you can just memorize this, right? Call up, put down, you got your 4 quadrants here. So kind of works. Now, I would have my customers sign a happy letter saying, hey, listen, do you understand that in a put, if you get exercised, you're going to be delivering the stock or buying the stock, at higher than the strike price. If somebody sticks it to you, puts it to you, and if you say you claim don't understand that, I'm going to whip out what, in the industry, not a test term, it's called a big boy letter, big girl letter, happy letter, that I can prove that, before you got into trouble, you had said you understood this. Okay, so here's the first of the 6 you're held accountable for. And what you're held accountable for is, again, break even, max gain, max loss, bullish or bearish. Now, again, when you hear the word long, remember they could say owner, they could say buyer, they could say holder. Let me get out my text box here to just put that over here. And I just want you to get comfortable that there's all kinds of words. And what you got to get to is that person has a choice. So I always recommend to people that what they do is underneath the option leg, say, what am I looking at? I'm looking at a choice. And that's what the word long means. It's a call contract. So I have a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. That's what that is in English. Now you can see where Dean found this deck. This deck comes from a class I taught before Apple split 4 for 1. So Apple used to be, 450, 500, and they did a 4 for 1 split. That's very testable in your SIE. So everybody who had Apple has more shares at a lower price. I hope you remember me telling you that. You don't need to do the math on your SIE. If they ask you what is the reverse of a split, you would simply pick the answer that says more shares at a lower price. There's only going to be one that has more shares of Apple at a lower price. And the same thing with the contract here. We'd split the contract. We'd have 4 contracts and the strike price would be less. You're not going to deal with, splits out effects options on SIE, but you're certainly going to do that. How embarrassing. GE is talking about a reverse split. If it's a reverse split, they're talking about doing a 10 for 1 reverse. And so now you're going to have, instead of 100 shares, 10 shares of GE. That's embarrassing. Very testable on SIE. I hope you remember telling you that in a reverse split, you don't need to do math. You end up with less shares at a higher price. So you can just shop the answer set and look for that one. Now, we said one way to proceed is just to simply memorize break evens. And if you're simply going to memorize break evens, that's not a big challenge. It's strike price. XP means strike price plus premium equals the break even. And so in this example, the Apple is 385. And we paid 9 points to be able to buy Apple at 385. And so our break even, I'm going to get out my calculator because my arithmetic is really bad. And so, you don't want to miss questions because you can't do arithmetic. 385 plus 9 is 394 is the break even here. And you can just simply memorize that. You can simply memorize that the maximum gain is unlimited. This would just be you using your matrix. You could memorize that the maximum loss is the premium. And you can memorize that long calls are bullish. Ding, 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 ding. Now, I like to also, and this is part of, again, the options ledger. If you don't want to memorize things, there's a lot of strategies to proceed. But one thing I like to do is make a T and track the money in and out. And so I like to get a T fired up. Now, sometimes you'll get bogged down in the T. It's not can you make a T, it's how do you track money? How do you track money in and out of the account? So what I like to do is I like to use dollars out, dollars in to track money. So if you plan on attacking that way, you can certainly do so. And as I told you, I like to use dollars out. Some people who do options like to use a minus sign. Some people like to use debit. Some people like to use paid, whatever floats your boat. I like to use dollars out versus dollars in. Again, some people like to use, personally, I like to use dollars in, tracking money. And again, everybody's different about how they proceed here, but I like to use dollars in. Some people like to use a plus sign to track the money. Some people like to use credit. Again, whatever floats your boat. But, however you get there, you need to get there. And then what I like to do, if I'm going to try and understand options, I say, okay, well, what I want to do here is I want to track the money. So I paid 9 points to be able to buy the apple at $3.85. So I'm just illustrating that indeed the break even is $3.94, because the break even is a number that if you plug it in here would make the columns balance. Now, if you get good at the T, you don't have to memorize, but if you get good at the T, then you can just track the answer set and look for an answer that would make it balance. So, if I buy the apple at $3.85 and I sell it at $3.94, I'd make 9 points. I spent 9 points. I break even. Nobody does things to break even. Nobody does things to break even. Now, again, this is just a simple SIE working models. So I'm not going to show you T. I'm not going to go in all of the minutia that I go in with you on, the lectures themselves. Just trying to give you some working models if it's an SIE candidate. I said you can just memorize and you can pass your SIE. But if you're trying to lay some base knowledge for when you take your Series 7 top off, maybe the T is a better way to proceed. All right, so let's review. This is the first of the option strategies you're held accountable for in SIE. It's a long call. You need to be able to do the break even, strike price plus premium, $3.94. You could just memorize that, or you can make a T. However you get there, you need to get there. The maximum gain is unlimited. That's probably pretty cool. How with limited risk would you like unlimited reward? How with as little as 9 points? By the way, that 9 points, very important, is for a contract, each covering government 100 shares. So we're really talking about 900. P.S. I would suggest this is a mess. I would not, put all that in there. I would suggest you do things on a per share basis. But this is 9 points to be able to buy Apple at $3.85. So that's pretty cool. Maximum gain is unlimited, because once Apple goes above that, you start to make some money. Here's the strike price of $3.85. Here's the market price of Apple. And once you cover your out-of-pocket cost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, you start to make some money. When you buy an option, you got to be right about 3 things: direction, how far, and timing. If you're right about all 3 of those things, you're going to be a big time winner. And again, in other lectures, we go more deep into it. It's just an SIE. So, we're trying not to crowd your mind too much, particularly if you're matriculating to a 6. Watch lecture 1, 2, and 3, look at these working models, do your practice questions. By the way, I've lifted some of the SIE option questions from the FINRA practice exam. They are in the lecture, so that'll give you a good idea of what you can expect. All right, so let's look at our second position, which is the opposite, by the way. The opposite position. All right, so again, a lot of ways to proceed. One way you can do is just simply memorize your matrix, right? Let's clean that up. And you could say, Dean, when you're short a call, you've received the premium, you have an obligation to sell the stock of the strike price. Your maximum gain is the premium, max loss is unlimited. You're a bear, your break even is call up, strike price plus premium. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. So that's one way to proceed. Now, I like to, underneath the leg I'm looking at, I like to write what it is I'm looking at. And so remember, don't have to say short on the test. We could say seller, we could say writer. And what you got to get to is potential victim. I'm joking. You got to get to that's an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. Listen, I have no enforcement power on video lectures, but if I did, I'd write you up if I found out you're watching this lecture before you're watching this working model lecture before you've actually done the work, the intellectual work of watching the actual lectures on options. But I'm hoping at this point you're not struggling too much with that, because that's what that is. And then we said you can just memorize if you'd like. You can just memorize. Don't have to memorize a whole lot on the SIE. You could just memorize strike price plus premium equals break even. And that's not so hard to do because, you got call up. And so you just take the strike price again of Apple plus the premium, which is 9. And we get our break even of 394. Please notice the same break even for both parties. It's just a matter where you want it in relationship to that break even. Here, the max gain is the premium, which in this case is 9 points on 100 shares governing one contract governing 100 shares, which is $900. The best case here is you agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes you, and you get to keep the money. You get to go neener, neener, neener. If that Apple is below 385, the contracts will expire. Again, in terms of, we were just looking at this a minute ago, but here's our strike price. Here's the market price. I have a little bit of a cushion here. So same break even. It's just this guy wants it below that break even and does not want it certainly to go above that, because if it does, ooh, one thing you should certainly recognize that if you agree to sell stock you don't own, you are exposed to unlimited risk because you're agreeing to sell stock you don't own. So you're going to have to go into the market at some point and buy this stock. I would certainly know that. Or every once in a while somebody says, well, Dean, it's not unlimited risk. It's unlimited less the premium. That's still unlimited. So, there's no graphing on the test. That's just to show you what it looks like visually. Who cares? And you are a bear. You would like Apple to be 385. By the way, you still win if it's just anywhere below 394, but you're bearish. And that's the opposite strategy, right? Now, again, if you're just doing the SIE, memorizing your matrix is fine. But if you're matriculating towards the Series 7, what I like to do is track money in and out. So I like to make a T. A lot of ways to do it. You could use pluses and minuses, as I mentioned. So be careful. However, you're watching somebody do videos, whether it's me or whoever, and you're doing options. Just pick what speaks to you. Whatever speaks to you, that's the way you should go about this. But I like to use, as I mentioned to you, I like to use dollars out versus dollars in. And so I like to say, okay, well, I brought in 9 points, and I've agreed to sell the Apple at 385. And so the break even is the number that would make the columns balance. So if I went into the open market and I bought the Apple at 394 and I delivered at 385, I'd lose 9 points. I got 9 points. I break even. Nobody does things to break even. Some people like to say, I brought in 9. I'm going to bring in 3. I'm going to bring in, this is using the plus signs. So you want to use plus signs. Some people like to say, okay, well, I brought in 9. I'm going to bring in 385. So the most I'm bringing in is 394. And then, what do I have to pay out? Who knows? Who knows? Unlimited risk potential. Well, we have 2 types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. And so that means we have 4 basic positions. So again, you can either memorize the matrix. I say, what can you tell me about a long put? You say, Dean, when you're long a put, you paid a premium. You have a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. Your max gain is break even to 0. Your max loss is the premium. You're a bull. You want the stock to go down. You want it down from the break even. The break even is strike price less premium. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. And all we need is, 2, 3, 4 SIE option questions, and we're out of there. Particularly, again, if you're matriculating to your Series 7. Remember the other words they could use. So let's get that up here. You want to get, as much as you can, try and get comfortable with the phraseology, right? So they could have said here, buyer, owner, holder. And what you're looking at here, and I like to do that next, is a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. That's what that is in English. By the way, I told you that's the most important thing, by the way, is to get the contract specifications down. So when you're looking at that answer set, long call, short call, long put, short put, you're not fumbling around with what that means. Again, there's only two break evens: call up, put down, call up, put down. So we said if you want to, one way to proceed is just to memorize. And I told you is there's nothing wrong with memorizing. If you just want to memorize and you're just taking an SIE and onto your 6, who knows how much you want to intellectually invest in this. But the break even and puts, if you only remember one thing about options, call up, put down, is the strike price, XP means strike price, minus the premium equals the break even. BE means break even. So here it's 385 and our premium is 9. And so our break even is, I told you my arithmetic sucks, so I'm going to use my calculator. 385 minus 9 equals 376 is our break even. And max gain. Now the max gain and the long puts, I think is challenging for a lot of folks. The best case scenario here, let me just get so, again, here, if you're a visual person, there's no graphing, but there's the strike price at 385. Here's the market price of Apple. It can only go to 0. When I buy an option, I got to be right about 3 things. I got to be right about direction. Here I'm choosing down. I got to be right about how far down, at least 9 points south of 385, because I got to cover my out-of-pocket cost. And I got to be right about the timing. I'm saying all this is going to take place between now and December, the third Friday at December at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So, here's my out-of-pocket cost. And this is the price of Apple. There's my break even of 376. And so I got to have it go past that. I got to cover my out-of-pocket costs. I was joking the other day with somebody. Maybe I'm not joking. I said, if we really want to teach you options, we make you buy one. And once you were out of pocket, whoa, that's not right. Once you were out of pocket, you'd figure out pretty quickly how you break even. So the best case here is I'm going to buy the Apple at 0. I paid 9 points to get going. I'm going to stick it to somebody at 385. And they say, Dean, you're making me pay 385 for stock that is worthless. I say, yes. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, Dean, I don't get it. I buy it to sell it. Those are different ends. When you buy a put contract, dollars out, 9 points out, you have a choice to sell the stock, dollars in. When you buy a put contract, dollars out, you have a choice to sell the stock, dollars in. Again, I wouldn't put this here and I wouldn't put this here. I highly recommend you do things on a per share basis. Above here, by the way, no intrinsic value, contract expires, and we lose our money. Anyways, max gain is break even to 0 when the stock goes from the strike price less premium, break even all the way to 0. So you can think of this as strike price less premium to 0 or break even. They won't on the test give you 2 choices here. Break even is always per share, but here they'll either give it to you per share or they'll ask it to you in total. If they ask it to you in total, the break even to 0 is that 376 number, right? So it'd be 30. By the way, I doubt they're going to ask this on your SIE. The SIE, pretty mellow on options. If you tell me you missed the mark on SIE because of options, I'm going to say, well, what were your other problems? But I do want to put something up there for you. So here's some working models. And as I said over and over again, I have the expectation you've already watched the other lectures on options, the 3, there's 4, but you're held accountable on the SIE for 3. So if you do those first 3, you should be in pretty good shape. And then you're bearish. You want the stock, you want Apple to go down. So again, you could just memorize that if you'd like. You're a bear, right? All right. Well, if we're going to have put-e's, right? So, again, it's not a box with 4 squares. It's a matrix. And so for this guy, the bad news is going to be the good news. And, options are a zero-sum game. For every winner, there's a loser. So I joke, we're going to have put putters. We got to have putties. I had a young lady in class one time. She goes, "These puts are the most unchristian things I've ever heard of." I said, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like them, then don't play, right? Don't play." Let's see what happened to our short put here. I don't see our short put. Did I get the deck out of the thing? Oh, well, that's okay. It looks like I will have to go get a dry erase board. There's our long put. Let me just, let's, you want to discard? I do. And let's just make a duplicate here real quick. By the way, this will be easy peasy because what I do now is I'm just going to change this. And we are back in business. So we have two types of contracts. Fixed. By the way, when it dawns on you that they're opposites, you got half as much, right, to worry about. Anyways, I told you there's a lot of ways to proceed. We said one way you can do is just memorize the matrix. I mean, that's not a lot of memory work, and I think that's perfectly appropriate for the SIE. And I'm making a big deal, 2 big deals I'm making. I'm nagging you. Part of my job is to nag you. First, you shouldn't be watching this working models. And I don't want to call it a lecture because most lectures are, an hour or so long, and they're self-contained and they're narrative. This is just working models, but that's let's call it, for lack of better terminology, a lecture. In this mini lecture, I'm assuming you've watched those videos. And if you're matriculating to a 6, I think that's a good choice. Maybe you don't want to, intellectually own all the options. If you're matriculating to a 7, I highly recommend you want to do a little more work because, you want to have lay base camp, so to speak, before you start your 7 journey. Anyways, you could just memorize. If you're going to memorize, not a bad way to proceed. You can just memorize, call up, put down. If you only remember one thing about options, call up and put down. Those are mnemonics to remind us how to get the break even. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take the strike price to get the break even. It's strike price minus premium. That equals the break even. And so here it's 385 minus 9. The break even is 376. So it's the same break even for both parties. It's just a matter of where they want it in relationship to that. And again, as I mentioned, you could just memorize the matrix. You could just go back here and say, well, when I'm short a put, I've received a premium. I'm obligated by the stock at the strike price. My max gain is the premium. Max loss is break even to 0. My break even is strike price less premium. And I'm a bull. I want the stock to go up. You may not have any clue what you just said, but it's technically correct. It's technically correct. Max gain. At some point, I would hope that you're not struggling, but the maximum gain is you agree to be a potential victim and nobody victimizes you. You walk with the premium. If Apple's 385 or higher, nobody's going to stick it to me. I get to go neener, neener, neener. And so the maximum gain is the 9 points. It's one contract. Each contract governs 100 shares. So the max gain here is $900. You agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes you. You walk with the money. You get to go neener, neener, neener. The max loss is somebody makes you pay $385 for stock that is worthless. The max loss is when Apple goes from the break even, which is 376, to I don't like that one. From 376 to 0. Or short puts are the ones that get people the most problem. I'll show that to you in a minute. And I'm bullish. I want the Apple to go up. I want it to be above 385 so I can keep the money. So again, here's our T. Here is dollars out, and here is dollars in. And here I brought in 9 points. And for that 9 points, I said I'd buy the Apple at 385. And so the worst case is somebody makes me pay $385 for worthless stock. I can't stress this to you enough. The biggest thing people get hung up on is the short put. So again, I highly recommend that maybe underneath this, you write, what are you looking at? You're looking at an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price. I mean, I think that's a great thing to do on your official scratch paper. Just right. What am I looking at? You're looking at an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price. If I didn't want to oblige myself to buy that stock at the strike price, I shouldn't have sold this option contract. I mean, remember we said the other way you could do this is seller, writer, that's what that is. It's okay. Sometimes people say, I don't get it, Dean. I sell it to buy it. When you sell a put contract, dollars in, you've agreed to buy the stock, dollars out. Because I don't get it. I sell it to buy it. Those are different hits. When you sell a put contract, you've agreed you will buy the stock. So those are different hits. And the worst case is I may stick it to you when it's worthless. All right. Well, those are our 4 basic option positions you're held accountable for on series SIE. And as I said, not a bad strategy, perhaps. Not a bad strategy, perhaps, if you just want to memorize the break even. There is those 4. By the way, those are the basics, I would imagine is most of what you're going to see. But here, we said this is number 1. We said that is bullish. We said this is position number 2. It's bearish. This is position number 3. And this is position number 4. Those are our 4 basic option positions that you're held accountable for and are tested on the SIE. All right, there's 2 more you're held accountable for on the SIE. And that is a covered call. So this is a covered call. So boy, you get you see the shares, you got to say, okay, this is not a guy who's coming to speculate. And, the break even is going to be different because this really is an option position. Again, I highly recommend that before you do anything, you write underneath, what are you looking at? And what you're looking at, that's called an option leg, not testable, but that's an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. But boy, you're a little bit smarter person here because you actually have the stock. And it's much different to agree to sell stock you actually own. That is called a covered call or a buy right. Covered because you actually own the apple. And this sounds pretty cool. I say, how would you like to collect $1,300 to agree to sell Apple at $390 that you just bought at $385? Somebody says, wow, that's pretty cool. I say, yeah, as option strategies go, not a bad one. Now, be careful here, ladies and gentlemen, because now the break even is going to be different. It's not call up. It's a different break even because we paid $385 for the stock. We brought in 13 points for the option. And so the break even is what we're net out of pocket. Again, you can just memorize if you choose to, that the break even in a covered call, the break even in a covered call is stock cost. What we paid. Now, let me get this out here so I'm not jammed up with we got some room to maneuver here. Stock cost minus premium equals the break even. So here our stock cost, let me just get this going here. Our stock cost is $385. And we brought in 13 points for the option. And so we're net out of pocket. Again, Dean's arithmetic is terrible. It's got my calculator right here. This is a simple function. That's what this, by the way, is what they give you at the test. So, if you're some, financial calculator person, you might want to invest. Simple function. I'm old school. So if you're doing this remotely, you have to use the calculator. It's on the computer screen. That would freak me out. But anyways, $385, what I paid for the stock. And then when I brought in, I got some price decline correction here. I brought in 13, so my break even is 372. By the way, if you get good at the T, I could have just shopped the answer set. Well, let's get that in there first before we start messing around. 372. That's our break even. Remember, if you want to rewind this lecture and start over again before you see Dean do it, you could just hit the pause button and try and see how you do using your matrix or using, the T, whatever you got, to see how you do coming up with these answers. But anyways, I could have, if I use a T, which Dean does, I could have just shopped my answer set knowing that it's got to be an answer that if I plug it in there would make the columns balance, because that's what the break even is. Break even is same dollars out as dollars in. But the big thing to know here is, remember, this break even is different because you have the stock. So when you're doing your test and you see shares, you got to stop and go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not a speculative option position. Now, the disadvantage of a covered call is you don't participate past the strike price. You don't participate past the strike price. So let me just clear up the slide here. And again, here is our, and so we paid 385, we brought in 13. And so here I have to deliver the stock, Apple, at 390. I do not participate past the strike price. There's three sources of profit here. We get the 5 points for selling at 390. The stock we bought at 385, plus we get to keep the 13. So the most we're bringing in is 405, or 43, excuse me. Please note, when you do this strategy, that's the downside of a covered call. But, if Apple's, 410 or 420, you got to give it up at the strike price. Now, another way to proceed with that max gain is to say, let me get this going, is to say we were net out of pocket 372. And we agreed to sell, right? That's what we were net out of pocket. That was our break even. And we agreed that we would sell at 390. And so that's another way to get that break even, is I could say, well, I get the 318 points there, right? What I paid net out of pocket for it, a break even to the strike price. And the maximum loss I wouldn't worry about as a test issue, but as a test issue, the worst case is the stock goes to zero, right? And then I'm going to lose $372, the break even. And so here the break even is 372. So my max loss is the stock is worthless. By the way, you're going to be an unhappy person, but I say, well, that's less than you would have lost had you just bought Apple. You would have lost, 38.5. So you did get some price decline protection. And then you're bullish because you're agreeing to sell high stock you just bought low. And so this strategy is bullish. Is bullish. 390. The more bullish you are, the higher the strike you'd write. The test question, the biggest test question on this position is, why do you do this? You do it to generate additional income. And they'll say suitability, right? So, Dean, I have a stock. It doesn't pay much in the way of dividends. I wish there were a way to supplement my dividend income. I say, oh, how about a covered call? How about you do a buy right or covered call to generate additional income? So the last position you're held accountable for is a hedge. A hedge is outside of options, a hedge keeps good things in and bad things out. If you just buy 100 shares of Apple and that's all you do at 385, if you just buy 100 shares of Apple at 385, and that's all you do, you could lose 38.5. Right, the stock goes to zero. So, so what I might want to consider doing is buying some protection. I might want to consider buying some protection, having a choice to sell the stock. If I had a choice to sell the Apple at a set price at any time between now and some future date, I wouldn't have all of that risk. And so the last option position you're held accountable for is what's called a protective put. Or I'm about to marry MRRY, a put to the stock position. I'm going to establish the choice to sell the Apple. And remember, whether I want a choice to buy the Apple, don't want to do that because I've already done that. Or choice to sell Apple, that's what I want to be able to do. Choices cost money. Choices cost money. All right, so let's put in our hedge here. Let's put in our hedge. And so again, I highly recommend that anytime you get an option contract, that underneath it, you write, what are you looking at? You are looking at a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. That's what XP means, strike price. That's what that is right there, right? Now, the distinction here is you actually are going to buying a choice to sell the stock you own. All right, that's pretty smart thing. This is like term insurance, right? You don't buy insurance because you're, planning on wrecking. You buy the insurance in case you're wrong. And so here we're out and in. This is the one time and it's not put down. So I would warn you that on these stock positions, when you get the stock positions, you got to say, whoa, this is a stock position. So we paid $385 for the Apple. We paid 9 points for the protection. And so we were out of pocket here. Let's get my calculator. $385 for the stock plus the 9 points for the protection. Our break even is $394. And so the break even, let's put that in here, is strike. Well, let me get out of the way here. Is strike price. XP means strike price plus the premium, the cost of the stock. Excuse me. It's the stock cost plus the premium equals our break even. And so here we paid $385 for the Apple, and we paid 9 points for the protection. And so our break even is $394. Please note, this is the one time and the one time only that we have it's a put. It's not put down because this is not an option position. Now, what's nifty about this is anytime I want, I can stick the Apple to somebody at $385. Pretty cool. The most I can lose is the break even to the strike price. The break even to the strike price. Pretty cool. Let's put that in there. The most you can lose here is let's get it where we can see it somewhere. There we go. The maximum loss is the break even, which in this case is $394, to the strike price, which in this case is $385. Well, we can sell it at. And so the maximum loss here is, again, Dean's is going to get calculated because I'm not good at arithmetic. Back in the days, I've had to take the series, not the SIE, but I've had to take the old 7 3-4 times as I came in and out of this industry. But last time I took the 7, we were still giving scores. I missed 4 questions out of 250. And I used to think they were like judgment questions, but to be honest with you, sometimes I'm teaching, I can't do basic arithmetic. I go, maybe the 4 I missed were, just arithmetic questions. So anyways, the max loss here is 394 to 385. And so 9 points. I should have been able to do that without my calculator, but oh well. Then remember, 9 points on, if you do what I'm suggesting, you only have to do that once. That's one contract or 100 shares. So it's, 9 times 1 times 100. It's actually $900. I wouldn't put that into my T's if you're going to go with the T version of this. And then the last thing I got to do is to determine bullish or bearish. You're bullish because if you weren't bullish, you wouldn't be sitting on 100 shares of Apple right now. And so you're bullish. And you do this. Why do you do this? This is a really great thing. You do this to have the ability to participate in a big price increase but not participate in a big price decline. So I think you're kind of a jerk of a customer if you say, hey, Dean, the Apple's 500 and we wasted our money for the protection. And I said, well, that put is not in case we're right. The hedge is in case we're wrong. Hedging is about what if we're wrong. So here I still have the ability to participate in a big price increase, but not a big price decline. The foundation of Mark Cuban's fortune is selling broadcast.com to Yahoo for over $1 billion in stock. And if Mark Cuban wasn't bullish on the stock, he would have just sold it. But he said, I think I'll buy some term insurance. And so he bought puts on every share of Yahoo he owned. At the time, Yahoo was a $120 stock. And Mark bought the 100 puts. He established the choice to sell at 100. Now, if he didn't think it was going to go up, he would have just sold it. He said, well, there's no sense going backwards. He bought it as a hedge. In 2010, Yahoo was $20 a share. Are we clear? He's not selling the Yahoo at 20. He's going to stick it to people at $100 a share, right? If you don't want to buy Mark Cuban's Yahoo stock for $100, you shouldn't have shorted the puts. He paid $200 million in capital gains tax. But are we clear? It's good to have the puts. It's kind of like, again, as I said, insurance. I don't buy insurance because I plan on wrecking. I buy insurance just in case. All right, well, those are the 6 option strategies you're held accountable for on your SIE. And I just want to provide some working models. I had a request for working models, kind of like we did for some of our Series 7 candidates. And so I did that for you. And I just happened upon this deck from a while back. And I thought, well, what the heck, we'll put it up there and do it. One other thing I want to show you is if you're just short the stock and that's all you do. And I told you, by the way, the most important thing here on this slide is this answer set. I told you this answer set is really, really important. There's 2 types of contracts, calls and puts. You can buy them or sell them. So there's our 4, right? Here's our calls. Here's our puts. We can go long or we can go short. And those are our 4 basics. And what I'm hoping is you're not struggling when you look at that long call. Let's just put that under the answer set. Let's say annotate it. Let's get us a different color. It has a choice or right. I like choice. Other people like to say right, whatever floats your boat. To buy the stock at the strike price. Right, that's what that is. And this is, let's put in there, this is an obligation to sell the stock. And this is a choice or right to sell the stock. And this is an obligation to buy the stock. Those are our 4 basic positions, right? And we have our matrix. We know what these are, right? I said, well, can you tell me about a long call, right? Now here, I just want to show you that if you just short the Apple, that has unlimited risk. But, if you had a choice to buy back the borrowed stock at a set price at any time between now and some future date, you wouldn't have unlimited risk potential. And so, I wouldn't call that option strategy 7. I would just recognize that if you have a choice to buy back the borrowed stock, you no longer have unlimited risk. So that's all I wanted to show you there. But I also want to review those answer sets for you. So let's just get rid of this. We just say that if you want to hedge that, you can buy this call and you're going to have unlimited risk. But again, this is the most important thing. And in terms of your matrix, right, you want to be able on your matrix, let's just clear this up. If you have your matrix, you're going to be in pretty good shape on your SIE. So there's our thing. Our matrix takes care of all 4 of these, right? And I told you this would be on your exam. This could be A, this could be B, C, D, and that's the most important thing you should be able to do. Okay, so again, I just want to stress again, this is not a lecture on options. This is working models of the things you're held accountable for. So this will go in the SIE playlist. I put a quarterly update on the channel. So for your subscribers, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Every once in a while, if I run into a deck like this for whatever exam it is, I'll just throw it up and turn on the studio lights and, throw it up there. This is kind of a bonus thing. It wasn't anything I was planning on. I just happened to be in the studio and bumped into this deck and thought, well, I feel bad for my SIE people. We haven't done anything really special for them. And so let's just do a little something that's in their playlist that's just theirs and no other candidate. So that was the intent. All right. Hope you're enjoying. Off to a good start for your week on Monday, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Do, 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 do.